Chair, you are now live.
Thank you. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll begin with our acknowledgement that the Halifax Region Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. Municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognize that we are all treaty people. Item number 2, we're looking for approval of the minutes of June 28, 2023. And has anyone noted any errors or omissions? No errors or omissions. I'm going to call for a motion to approve the minutes.
I will move that, Lois.
Thank you, Lois. Seconder?
Okay, I, Azuka, my second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 3, approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Were there any additions or deletions for this?
Yes, we did have an addition. 10.1, I did circulate the report. It's H00571, 2023-2024 Heritage Incentive Programs, application number 24/031.
Okay. That was what you just sent out a few minutes ago, was it? No.
Yes, I sent it over.
That was a item 10.1. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wrote it in on mine. Okay. Does a member wish to move items? All right, none so being, we'll go forward with that. We have a motion to approve this order of business. I just need a mover.
This is Patrick.
Tyler, thank you. And a seconder?
It's Patrick. I'll second it.
Thank you, Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None so being, the motion is carried. Business arising from the minutes. Do we have anything from that? I don't think so. Seems to be an empty category. And of course, we have our call for the declaration of conflicts of interest. Do any members have a conflict of interest to declare as a result of any of the items included in the agenda? No conflicts of interest, we can move on. I don't believe we had a deferred business on item 6, at least to the best of my knowledge. And 7 is correspondence. So I'm just going to check with our legislative assistant. Has there been correspondence received by the clerk's office?
There has not been any correspondence received to the clerk's office.
We did have letters circulated before the last meeting regarding, or was that technically a petition? Regarding having the possibility of a new heritage district being looked into.
Yes, I did circulate that as general correspondence because it doesn't relate to any items on the agenda today. Yeah. Although if the members would like to bring it forward for discussion, they could add it to the next agenda as an agenda item.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review that?
Very, very briefly.
Yeah, it's a very well done document. And it's quite extensive. I really only got a chance to look at it a couple of weeks ago. Looking for basically an extension of a heritage district in the north end of Halifax. So do I have a motion that we can look at that at our next meeting when people have had a chance to review it?
Yeah, this is Patrick. I would definitely be in favor of putting this on next meeting's agenda.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yes.
Thank you, Lois. So all in favor of having a chance to review and discuss that letter, that correspondence, our next meeting in August? Say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? We'll carry that forward and we'll take care of that in August. If you did get a chance to look at it, it's an interesting concept. A lot of pictures, a lot of good documentation about why that area may be extended. And it's something we will need to spend some time on.
Well constructed.
Yeah, it was, and quite detailed. Are there any committee members who have petitions they wish to bring forward? Okay, none so being, we'll move on. No information brought forward, item 8, but we do have a report on item 9 regarding the 10 Kirk Road, Halifax substantial alteration. Staff member Elizabeth Cushing, one of our planners, if she wants to jump in here and do her presentation, that would be great.
Great, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Great, good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Cushing. I'm a heritage planner with Planning and Development. I'll be presenting the substantial alteration application for the municipally registered heritage property at 10 Kirk Road in Halifax. Just to confirm, everyone can see my screen.
Now I can.
Perfect, thank you, Chair. The application is by McKay Lyons Sweet Apple Architects on behalf of the property owners. They're requesting to enter into a heritage development agreement on the lands at 10 Kirk Road to permit a 15-unit bare land condominium on a registered heritage property. The property is also known by its Gaelic name, Fintig Mera, which means small house by the sea, and was registered as a heritage property in 2010. The property is an early 20th century estate and contains the original arts and crafts style house circa 1914, which I'll be referring to as the primary dwelling. The property also contains a series of landscape features, including the roost, which is an outbuilding, stone retaining walls, stands of trees, an in-ground concrete pool, and a rhododendron garden. Another key feature is the view from the primary dwelling to the northwest arm. So in accordance with Section 17 of the Heritage Property Act, a substantial alteration to a municipal heritage property requires Regional Council approval. Before that, of course, it gets reviewed by HAC, whose recommendation will then go to Regional Council for their consideration. This development agreement is being sought in accordance with Policy 6.8 of the Halifax Secondary Municipal Planning Strategy, which permits Council to consider a development agreement on any lot containing a registered heritage building for any development or change in use that's otherwise not permitted by the land use and designation and zone. The subject property is located on Kirk Road, which is off of Purcell's Cove Road. It's bound by Park Hill Road, McManus Road, the Northwest Arm, and of course, Kirk Road. It's a 3.75 acre property and has 106.8 feet of frontage on Kirk Road. So as mentioned, 10 Kirk Road was added to the Heritage Registry in 2010. The heritage value is largely derived from the principal dwellings designed in the arts and crafts style in 1914. This was done by architect William Brown for eye surgeon Dr. R.E. Mathers, who retained ownership of the property until 1944. The surrounding property elements attributed to Dr. Mathers' tenure on the property include the roost, outbuilding, stone walls, rhododendron garden, in-ground pool, and hemlock tree stands. Modifications to the original home include the annex addition to the south of the primary dwelling and gable additions on the primary dwelling west elevation, which took place in the 1980s. So the photo here shows the east elevation, which faces the northwest arm, and this is the original portion of the building. Upon review by HRM building officials in 2022, it was determined that 2 of the outbuildings on the property were in a serious state of disrepair and were subsequently demolished. The applicant intends to restore and retain the outbuilding known as the Roost, which will be incorporated into one of the building sites as an accessory building. The annex addition circa 1965 is proposed to be demolished and the south elevation restored on the primary dwelling based on the original architectural blueprints by William Brown. Here are just some additional visuals showing the hemlock tree stand on the left. So this is the main view when you enter the property from Kirk Road, and the view from near the primary dwelling towards the northwest arm. You can see the concrete pool in this photo. And this is another visual just of the west elevation of the primary dwelling facing Kirk Road. So to the left would be the original dwelling and to the right is the annex. Case 24505 is ongoing and is running concurrently with the substantial alteration application. Regional Council must determine the outcome of the substantial alteration before we can proceed with the case. It will also come to the HAC to obtain a recommendation on the proposed development agreement. So today's review will focus on the impact of the proposed changes on the character defining features of Fintig Mera, mainly the primary dwelling. Of course, an important aspect to note is that the property had an approved development agreement from 2012 that lapsed, and there is now a change in property ownership. So the current property owners have applied to enter into a new development agreement. The previous approved development agreement was similar to the proposed application before you and was for a bare land condominium. However, it proposed to keep the annex and turn the primary dwelling into 2 units, so similar to a duplex. And then in addition to the principal dwelling, 12 building sites were proposed. So the proposal in front of you today includes the demolition of the annex with 1 unit within the primary dwelling and 14 additional building sites. So the full comparison is provided on page 3 in the staff report. One of the substantial alterations includes the removal of the existing annex addition circa 1965 and the restoration of the south elevation according to the original architectural blueprints of the principal dwelling by William Brown, where the annex was connected. So as I mentioned, the south elevation will be restored based on the original architectural blueprints as shown here. The west elevation will retain the gable dormers and bay window, which were added in the late 20th century. This would follow a minimal intervention approach from the standards and guidelines. All windows and doors will be replaced in kind, which are true to the originals in design and materials. And the property will be altered to include 14 residential building sites, additional driveway circulation, and a shared guest parking area, which would be accessible from McManus. Building sites are located along the outer property boundary. The principal dwelling retains its historical and visual connections to the other character-defining elements associated with Dr. Mathers, again, such as the rhododendron garden, concrete pool, stone walls, and the view from the northwest arm. The full design concept can be found in the Heritage Impact Statement. They all involve simple forms, colors, and materials so as to not detract from the heritage character of the primary dwelling. The concrete in-ground pool and surrounding hardscape will be altered to be operable and to meet building code. The footprint of the pool will remain the same, and the stone walls adjacent to the pool will be repaired as necessary. Lastly, the proposal involves the preservation and repairs as needed of the stone walls and rehabilitation of naturalized areas such as the rhododendron garden and hemlock tree stand on the property as shown on the site and landscape plans. So standards and guidelines for historic places in Canada are used to perform an analysis of the appropriateness of substantial alterations impact on a property's character-defining elements. So regarding this case, conservation involves a combination of both preservation and rehabilitation. So in keeping with the standards and guidelines, the applicant intends to repair the existing elements where possible and replace in kind when necessary with the aid of the original building blueprints and photographic evidence. The heritage significance of the property relates to its historical connection with Dr. Mathers, who owned the property until 1944. So the removal of the annex addition will assist in rehabilitating the house to the original William Brown architectural blueprints. So once the above noted addition is removed, the dwelling will be largely restored to its original form. The staff suggests that the restored character-defining elements will be consistent with this historic place, again, as they will be based on early photographic evidence and the original architectural blueprints. The character-defining elements of the surrounding property will either be preserved and repaired or replaced in kind. Based on that, it is recommended that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that Regional Council approve the proposed substantial alteration to 10 Kirk Road, Halifax, as set out in the staff report dated July 21st, 2023. Thank you, and I welcome any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Any discussion? Lois?
Yes, I have a question for Elizabeth. What is the roost used for? It's an outbuilding. It looks to be in fairly good shape, but I couldn't figure out what its purpose was.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The current purpose is currently vacant. I believe it would have just been accessory building for storage or something similar, but in the interior has, I believe, a bathroom and kind of like a loft space in the interior.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
this has a second part to it. a couple of the places a couple of years ago were deemed to be unstable and were taken down. Was there discussion with the city before they were demolished? And the city agreed that could happen, that they were not salvageable? Was there discussion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there was discussion with the city. So the applicant did provide their own building physical condition reports, but this was substantiated through HRM's own building inspection staff who completed their own separate reports on those accessory buildings, and they were deemed to be unsalvageable.
Okay, my thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I had a quick question on what was the original building registered as a heritage property, and was the annex not part of that registration? Did that come before or after?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So to the councillor, the tricky thing with this heritage registration is that it took place before we necessarily strictly identify character defining elements. So, but it did specifically note that historical association with Dr. Mathers. So because that annex building would have been developed outside of Dr. Mathers' tenure, it would not necessarily be considered a character defining element. And the exterior is quite more modern than the original structure.
Did it serve as an office area?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, I believe it is all currently vacant at the moment, and it has been such for, I think, since the original development agreement.
Does that answer your question, Councillor?
No, I just kind of wondering if the eye doctor, well, the annex was built after the eye doctor sold it, I believe. So I just kind of wondering if it had a commercial purpose or not. I wasn't sure if it was assessed that way or not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my apologies, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. No, this would not have been where Dr. Mathers practiced. His office was in downtown Halifax area. This would have been his home.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or discussion?
Yes, Lois.
Lois, yes.
I'm back again. I noticed that there was a public information meeting held in February, and I'm wondering what the response was to that meeting, whether that would perhaps help us reach a decision here.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Chair. So there was a public information meeting that was held in February. It was pretty well attended. I think one of the major issues that came up was kind of outside of the purview of this application regarding general traffic in the neighborhood. So we had extensive conversations with our traffic engineers and our parking services and fire services as well to come up with a solution and how to mitigate that. So we are implementing no on-street parking in the surrounding neighborhood to assist with this, and the traffic engineers didn't have any concerns regarding the density from the proposed development, and the fire services also didn't have any concerns.
They didn't have any concerns. Okay. Thank you. I
And
remember thinking that there was an issue around traffic, so there'll be no on-street, not even permit parking, just plain no on-street traffic. Parking, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
You know what I meant. Thank you. Anything else from the committee? Okay, do we have a mover for this motion? The motion being that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that the Regional Council approve the proposed substantial alteration at 10 Kirk Road, Halifax, as set out in the staff report.
Well, duly moved.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor.
I will second it, Lois.
Thank you, Lois. I'll call the question. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None so being, motion passed. We have an Adam, committee member updates. I don't think we have anything on that, do we? No. Added items would be 10.1. And I believe we have a presentation here from Carter Beauport McPhee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hopefully you can all hear me and see the presentation. So good afternoon to the chair and members of the Heritage Advisory Committee. I'm Carter Beaupre McPhee, Heritage Planning Researcher for HRM's Heritage Property Program. And today staff are pleased to bring before the committee case H00571, a request to recommend that council approve the proposed grant 24-031 for the property 1099 to 1101 Tower Road. The Heritage Property Program uses the annual grant funding supplied through the Heritage Incentives Program to support the conservation, preservation, and restoration of municipally registered heritage properties throughout HRM. This program was approved by Regional Council on April 1st, 2014, through Administrative Order number 2014-002 ADM, and it provides matching grants for eligible exterior conservation work up to a maximum of $15,000 for residential properties and a maximum of $25,000 for commercial properties. Applications for the 2023 to 24 Heritage Incentives Program were accepted from September 1st to December 1st of 2022. Staff received 31 applications for the 2023 to 24 program year. At the time these grant applications were reviewed and evaluated, staff were only aware of a total of 30 applications, 24 of which were submitted on time and met the eligibility criteria. On March 7th, 2023, Regional Council approved the 2023-24 HIP grants for those 24 applications that met the program's eligibility criteria. Since Regional Council's March 7th, 2023 approval of the grants, staff have become aware that one application, number 24-031, was not reviewed due to staff oversight. Staff received this application on November 30th, 2022. The application was complete and submitted on time, and therefore it should have been reviewed previously along with the other grant applications. To ameliorate this and ensure fairness, it is being considered now. The application in question, application 24-031, is for the property at 1099 to 1101 Tower Road in Halifax, and it is seeking a grant to assist with the repair and repainting of the exterior of the building and the repair or replacement of 2 windows, trim, and siding as required, at an estimated cost of $36,000. Staff have reviewed the application and advised that the proposed work meets the program's eligibility criteria and should have been submitted to Regional Council for approval of a $15,000 grant. The approved 2023-24 budget for the Heritage Incentives Program is $350,000. On March 7th, 2023, Regional Council approved 24 grants amounting to a cumulative value of $258,563.60. The requested grant of $15,000 for application 24-031 will bring the total grants approved for the 2023-24 program year to $273,563.60 and can therefore be easily accommodated within this year's budget. The recommendation is now before the committee for consideration. Thank you.
Are there any questions regarding this report?
Just a clarification,
Yes.
do we have any outstanding balances left in that account that we can accommodate this request? Or is this additional funding from elsewhere?
Through the chair to the councillor, could you please repeat your question? I didn't quite hear it.
Was this $15,000, was that available in the existing grant allocation in the budget, or is it coming from another source? As I thought we gave out all the money we had.
Through the chair to the councillor, this is entirely feasibly accommodated within the existing budget approved for the program, as there was leftover budget in the program, and it can be fully accommodated.
Do we know
Okay.
Do we know what kind of outstanding balance is remaining after this 15,000 is gone?
I can do, through the chair to the counselor, I can do a quick back of the hand calculation here of $350,000 minus the new spend of $273,563.60, leaves a remaining budget of $76,436.40.
Hopefully that'll carry over to next year's Heritage Program.
That little bit was garbled, Counselor. Just missed that. What was that?
I just hope that remaining balance gets carried over and added to next year's budget allocation.
Okay. Thank you.
I can just clarify that, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, Councillor Hensby, finance does not allow us to roll over funding from one year to the next, so it will go back to general revenue as it does every year.
So one of those crest pool accounts for unused capital.
No comment.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to ask, this is July, which is almost the middle of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Given your record, by this time of the year, you know, is the budget usually expended to the tune of, this is almost, it should be up to 90% or 80% by now? Because I've seen that, you know, the budget, if we spend this $50,000, it will take the budget to about $273,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question is, usually in other years, do you expend this much by around the middle of the year?
So I can answer that for you, Mr. Chair, to the member. So in previous years, at least since the pandemic, it has been very rare for us to spend all of our $350,000 grant budget. That's mainly due to the fact that there is a critical shortage of skills and labor, and material costs are going through the roof. So people are having a very tough time getting skilled carpenters to do the work that they've been approved to do. So often there is, at least in the past few years, money left on the table, unfortunately, that goes back to general revenue. But I should note as well that this budget is approved shortly after the April budget is passed by regional council. So that budget of $258,563 would have been approved probably around the first week of May, or whatever the first council meeting was after the budget was approved in the spring.
And as a further point of clarification through the chair to the committee member, we are not anticipating any further spend in the budget for this program, as the grants are typically approved in one batch after they've been reviewed in March of the current year. And so with this rare exception being that it was due to staff oversight that this application was missed, we do not anticipate any further spend for this program.
Okay.
On that question, could any late applications be considered? I know the Muscatauga Harbor Railway Museum is in desperate need of reshingling.
For you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Hensby, unfortunately, the rules of the administrative order are quite tight, and they do not allow us to consider late applications. However, in this particular case, this was an oversight by staff. It was a clerical error, so that's the reason why we're able to consider it.
When does the next round of funding open for people?
The next round of funding will start on September 1st of this year, and it'll end on December 1st.
Thank you. Any further questions or comment?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, this is Azuka again.
Yeah.
Based on the explanation, I think if it was an error, a clerical error, and it's not a new request, but something that should have been considered earlier in the year, I'm in support of it being approved, since it's also within the budget. Yes. And the year is not spent yet.
It's almost more like housekeeping.
Yeah.
We want to slip through the cracks, as they say. We have the recommendation that the Heritage Advisory Committee agree to the proposed grant to the property known as 1099 and 1101 Town Road, Halifax, additional upon the applicant's compliance with sections 29 and 35 of the administrative order. Do we have a motion for that recommendation? Do we have a mover?
Yes, I, Azuka.
Thank you, Zuka. And a seconder?
Tyler Colonel seconds.
Okay, thank you.
And I just hope the village, the property owner will be able to get the work done, you know, with the construction season now heavy upon us, and with all the everything else going on with the wildfires and availability of contractors, supplies, and materials. Will there be any chance of carryover of the grant money into the following construction season? I'd like to know what kind of deadline does the applicant have to finish the work?
Through the chair to the councillor, the deadline for the work for the work to be completed and receipts and photos to be submitted to us will be March 1st of 2024. There is very limited capacity to extend, and if they do not complete it by that time, then they will forfeit their grant.
We can only hope for a good fall construction season in that particular case. And we have a seconder for that motion. I go call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? None so being, motion carried. Date of next meeting is August the 23rd, 2023. And in order to have adjournment, I simply need a mover.
I will move.
Thank you. Thank you, Lois and Councillor. Have a great day. It's lovely out there. Warm, but lovely.
We're all headed outdoors under the trees. Maybe the mosquitoes are too.
Maybe not yet.
Enjoy.
Okay, enjoy.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you very much.
Enjoy the sunlight. Bye.